Your Excellency, Mr. President, distinguished participants of the conference, it is my pleasure and honor to welcome you and all participants at the ADA University. We are immensely proud to host this international policy discussion for the 7th time, and we are very grateful to President Aliyev for his support and participation in each of these conferences. In the past years, more than 200 experts and scholars from 60 countries have attended our discussions, held in Baku and 4 cities of the liberated Karabakh, and later published many articles on the regional and global issues. This year, ADA University International Conference brings together a record number of 80 foreign participants. More than 50% of the participants join us the first time. The topic of the conference is very relevant to the current state of the global affairs. The world is undergoing tectonic changes, regional and global conflicts, radicalization of the political scenes, rise of nationalism, and attacks on multilateralism, weakening of the international law, and the dominance of the power of force and violence. These are common characteristics of today's world. And to this climate, we will add to this climate issues, migration problems, protectionism, and trade wars. What kind of the future we are expecting? What will be the new global order? What is the role of countries like Azerbaijan in these developments and trends? Mr. President, after our yesterday trip to Karabakh and Khankendi, where we have witnessed impressive level of reconstruction and development, today we are honored to hear your views on these global and regional issues as one of the most experienced leaders in the world. We believe that your interaction with the participants and the follow-up panels will help to better shape and communicate the vision for peace in this region and around the world. I believe that our guests will leave Baku with more knowledge and positive impressions about Azerbaijan's rapid transformation and development. We thank you, Mr. President, once again for your time, and we look forward to your remarks. Please, Mr. President, the floor is yours.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'd like to welcome you all in Azerbaijan and express gratitude to ADA University and its leadership and rector, Professor Pashayev, for initiative to launch this process. As it was already said, it's for the 7th time. The big group of international experts from different countries visit Azerbaijan to address important issues of global agenda. And at the same time, all these visits help to know Azerbaijan better, to feel the pulse of the country. And also, after liberation of historical territories of Azerbaijan, the regular visits of international experts to the liberated territories, of course, gives more information about the history of our country, the history of the conflict, and of course, today's reality of Azerbaijan, which cannot be separated from our glorious victory in the Second Karabakh War, and also in the unique precedent of restoration of the country's territorial integrity without international support and by its own means and by military political means. As Rector Pashayev said, yesterday you visited Khankendi, the city which unfortunately for many years, for more than 3 decades, was a center of Armenian separatism in Azerbaijan. Actually, the separatist movement, inspired and sponsored by Armenia, started in that city. The historical land of Azerbaijan, the very name Khankendi demonstrates its Azerbaijani origin and roots, which means the village of the Khan. But after illegal and absolutely groundless from political, historical, economic, and cultural point of view decision of Soviet government to create Nagorno-Karabakh autonomous district in Azerbaijan, in Azerbaijan's Karabakh region, unfortunately launched the process which led to aggressive separatism. In 1993, the creation of Nagorno-Karabakh Autonomous District was actually a time bomb which exploded when it was needed for separatists, for their sponsors, and for various actors which used the conflict for their political purposes. We put an end to that a year and a half ago by less than 24 hours military operation, which actually was the last point in our battle for sovereignty. So you've been there, you witnessed what is happening, and I think the best demonstration of today's Azerbaijan's reality is the visit to the regions, particularly the regions which suffered from devastation and Armenian occupation. Probably I will conclude now my introductory remarks to leave more room for discussions. I'm sure that yesterday's discussions and today and interaction between the experts will help all of us to elaborate joint approaches and exchange views on the rapidly changing world, which already absolutely different from what it was when we met last year. Thank you very much once again for being with us. I wish you a pleasant stay in Azerbaijan.
Thank you, Mr. President. With your permission, we would like to start our discussion session, and quite a substantial number of the participants have subscribed for their questions. And we'll start first with Svante Carnell, Sweden.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. It's wonderful to see you again. I would like to ask you, because we have seen Azerbaijan has lately become strongly involved as a participant in both Central Asian and Middle Eastern affairs, with extensive economic and political relations. And I wonder if you could elaborate on how Azerbaijan views itself as being simultaneously part of Europe, Central Asia, and the Middle East, and the role you see for Azerbaijan bridging these three parts of the world. Thank you.
So this is partly based on our geography and the history of Azerbaijani people and the way how Azerbaijan developed through centuries, being at the same time part of Eastern and Western geography. And of course, geography is an important factor for every country, but it is not the only factor which dominates the policy. So we based our policy on that geography and established, I think, very strong ties with our neighbors across the Caspian and to the south of Azerbaijan, particularly in the countries of Middle East. With respect to the long-lasting cooperation with European countries, with many of these countries, Azerbaijan signed or adopted a declaration on strategic partnership. So this already established platform allows us to play an important role as a geographical, political, economic, and transportation bridge between a region of Central Asia and Europe. And we know that there is a big interest now to Central Asia from the West, whether it's European Union or United States or other international institutions, and of course planning the long-term cooperation with that region. It's only enough to look at the map to understand that Azerbaijan cannot be avoided. Though there are some in Europe who would prefer to separate Azerbaijan not only from this process, but also to build the dividing lines in the Caucasus, particularly in the southern Caucasus. But these attempts, they definitely will not succeed, because not only geography, but also political, economic, cultural connections between Azerbaijan and the countries of Central Asia actually create this very unique atmosphere of partnership. So Azerbaijan geographically is a country of Southern Caucasus, country of Caspian, but at the same time we're just next to Central Asia, only Caspian Sea is dividing us. So from point of view of practical cooperation, transportation, middle corridor, so we did a lot in order to help to build bridges and also to increase the volume of cargoes, because large investments in Azerbaijan's transportation infrastructure, particularly seaport, shipbuilding factory, our railroad facilities, and other logistical infrastructure which we created, actually today is instrumental. And we see that year after year, we see a growing number of cargo going through Azerbaijan, not only from Central Asia, but also from China, and to China from Europe. So I think this is an important asset, and for any international actor which would like to make relations with Central Asian countries closer, of course, again, it's enough to look at the map and to look at the political interaction between the leaders of Azerbaijan and Central Asian countries. More or less the same we can say about our strong connections with the Middle East and with countries members of Gulf Cooperation Council. Azerbaijan established a very strong relationships based on mutual respect and mutual interest. We already work actively on different investment projects. That also can be applied to the countries of Central Asia, where we already created several joint investment funds with some Central Asian countries and with some countries of Gulf Cooperation Council. So creating this synergy definitely will be to the benefit of all of us. Recently, just 6 months ago, we signed an important agreement between Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan on green energy cable under the Caspian Sea. So that will bring the vast green energy resources of Central Asia, which already some of them are available and some in the process, and add to the vast green energy resources of Azerbaijan and support European countries with respect to energy security. So far it is oil and gas, but it will be electricity generated from green energy. Just several days ago we held regular Southern Gas Corridor Advisory Council in Baku. Part of the agenda was devoted to green energy. So transportation, green energy, security, stability, and of course joint efforts to strengthen statehood and independence of our region is an important international factor now.
Our second question, Stephanie Fenkert, Austria.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for hosting us. It's a pleasure. I'm Stefanie Fenkert from Austria, Vienna, working for International Institute for Peace. And I've been here also last time, and I asked a question about reconciliation and mediation between Armenia and Azerbaijan. This time, however, I would like to ask a long-term question. I want to know maybe if you can elaborate a little bit on your long-term vision for the South Caucasus countries, considering the topic that we're facing a new world order. And maybe you can see that it's a long process between Armenia and Azerbaijan. It's going to be still long in the sense of coming to terms, getting to the peace agreement, but the obstacles can be overcome. But nevertheless, I think it is also important to have this idea, like the European state having a vision on how to make war impossible in the future, and then at one point coming to an institutionalized form, which was the European Union. I'm not suggesting to follow this path, but what would be your long-term vision for the South Caucasus from where Azerbaijanis, Armenians, and Georgians would profit, considering also that geography is here to stay, as you mentioned before? Thank you.
Yeah, I think that we even can talk about mid-term targets, which are reachable and achievable. Unfortunately, Armenian occupation of Azerbaijan's territories did not allow Southern Caucasus to develop as more or less integrated region. We had all chances for that, but aggression and devastation and suffering of Azerbaijani people did not allow that to happen. So Southern Caucasus was not integrated, though from economic point of view and point of view of transportation routes, and of course, energy security, that could have happened. If we look at the relationship between Azerbaijan and Georgia, we will see all those segments which I just mentioned: energy security, transportation, political dialogue, investments, economic advantages. So Armenia actually deprived itself from that, and actually, as a result of occupation and aggression, deprived itself from becoming a transit country, important transit country for Azerbaijan's energy resources and transportation routes. And all the transit of whether it's oil, gas, or cargo from Azerbaijan goes through Georgia. So Armenia could have been part of that process. It's their fault that they miscalculated on the future development and sacrificed the economic future, their real independence, to this dream of great Armenia. When agreement between Azerbaijan and Armenia, and if is signed, then of course there'll be no obstacle of beginning of cooperation. And I think that we should not lose time, because again, with respect to peace agreements, the ball is on Armenian side. On many occasions, I already made it public many times what we expect from Armenia with respect to our territorial integrity and their constitution. So it is known. As soon as it is done and peace agreement is signed, so there'll be no obstacle for Southern Caucasus to try to be integrated region. I think it can be a win-win situation for three countries of Southern Caucasus. And being realists, of course, we cannot imagine that immediately we'll become friends with Armenia. It is not realistic. And even to talk about kind of economic integration is premature. But to start making small steps in confidence-building measures, we are ready for that. And there have been certain initiatives recently generated from our Georgian friends, and we responded positively. So we'll be waiting for the position of Armenian side, and if that happens, the small steps can start, like exchange of visits of journalists, intellectuals, joint maybe sessions on transboundary rivers, because this is a serious concern for Azerbaijan, because Armenia is polluting. Aras River and also, by the way, Kura River needs to be addressed more properly en route to Azerbaijan. So all that can have a practical impact, and with these small steps we can try to reduce mistrust. To build trust it will take years, but at least to reduce it. So we are ready for that.
Brenda Schaffer, United States and Israel.
Good morning, President Aliyev.
Good morning.
We're in 2025. It's almost 5 years since the 44-day war. It's a time to especially remember the martyrs that died, especially young people defending their country, and the injured that every day are still part of the struggle. But it's also an opportunity to ask the Commander-in-Chief and the President that presided over preparing Azerbaijan and its military for this war, what your conclusions are after 5 years. We could say that since World War II, very few wars have had a true conclusion. They just sort of kick the can down to a continuing conflict. The Armenia-Azerbaijan war is one of the only one, including thanks to the September 2023 anti-terrorism operation, that has a final conclusion. So what are your lessons 5 years after the war as Commander-in-Chief? Urban warfare, low number of civilian casualties and damage to civilian infrastructure. What are the lessons for modern wars that unfortunately are still taking place as we sit here?
Thank you. Of course, there are different segments answering this question. First, the defense capability, and since the Second Karabakh War, Azerbaijan continued its reforms in armed forces due to the fact that still the separatists existed on our territory and we had to be ready for any kind of provocation. There have been certain military confrontations since 2020 war until 2023 when we completely restored our sovereignty. Our conduct of military operations during the Second Karabakh War clearly demonstrated the very high level of capability of Azerbaijan's armed forces, discipline, and also political will of Azerbaijani government. We did not take revenge, though one can imagine what feelings we all lived with through the years of occupation, especially when we returned to Karabakh and have seen the barbarism and vandalism. So we, and I said many times that we will take revenge on the battlefield. We will not do anything beyond normal human behavior and beyond the rules of war which we are committed to. And that was the case. We conducted the war with respect to all international rules and our own understanding about values. And this was appreciated by all the experts which thoroughly examined every day of 44 days war. So after the war ended, of course, the situation could not be considered as totally stable. Until September 2023, it was not. And we had casualties, and unfortunately, Armenia and those foreign forces which were behind them gave them very bad advices. Actually, on November 10, 2020, Armenia signed the Capitulation Act. And we all know from history what happens when one country capitulates. But it didn't happen. So Armenia tried to continue to behave as if there had been no 30 years of occupation, suffering of Azerbaijani people. There was no 44 days war. And they just got very bad advices from their so-called friends. And by the way, this process continues, though many times we warned them that they should not rely on those whom they consider their friends, whether it's old or new, because here on the ground they will face us. And we have enough political will to defend our interests, our political interests on the international arena, and we cannot be a subject of any kind of international pressure which will divert us from our policy. So from military point of view, whether it's Second Karabakh War, anti-terror operation of September 2023, and what we are doing after in order to strengthen our military capacity is absolutely understandable, especially taking into account that there is a large process of militarization of Armenia, deadly weapons which have been supplied by new Armenian friends, actually will not actually lead to peace and stability. It will only lead to potential tensions in the future. We know that there are quite a strong revanchist groups in Armenia. I would, how to say, divide them in two. Active revanchists, those who are responsible for 30 years occupation, and passive revanchists, today's government, which tries to demonstrate so-called constructive approach, but in fact lives with the same feelings of revenge and revenge. So this is the reason why they are buying deadly weapons. Some of them they acquire free of charge. This is the reason why they're planning new military operations against Azerbaijan. And this is the reason why they do not want just to accept our legitimate proposal to dissolve the Minsk Group of OSCE. Because as we all know, Minsk Group was created to tackle the issues of Karabakh conflict. If Armenian government considers it is done, which they declare, and if they recognize Karabakh as part of Azerbaijan, there is no reason why Minsk Group should not be dissolved legally. De facto, it is not functional, but refusal to sign a joint application with Azerbaijan to OSCE to dissolve Minsk Group formally is a sign that they just are waiting for the time. They're waiting maybe for some changes, for some advantages international situation. They counted very much on democratic administration to continue after the elections. So for them, the victory of President Trump was a big disappointment and frustration. We all know that. But nevertheless, political establishment of Armenia on the issue of Azerbaijan is not divided. It is consolidated. It's just a matter of vocabulary, matter of behavior, and matter of tactics. So we must be ready for that. So from military point of view and from political point of view. So until peace agreement is signed and Armenia puts down completely all territorial claims to Azerbaijan, which still exists in the constitution, and will demonstrate a sincere behavior to normalize relations with Azerbaijan, still there always will be a threat of new military standoff. And the last point on that is that since 2020, almost 5 years have passed, we still are facing absolutely groundless speculations and accusations of Azerbaijan that Azerbaijan is planning a new aggression against Azerbaijan. So already almost 5 years have passed, but still this black propaganda, mainly generated by the government of France and those who follow their policy in European Union, and also by State Department under Blinken. So this black propaganda continues. And on many occasions, just behind closed doors, I was saying, look, if we wanted to continue the war in November 2020, we would have continued that. We stopped our military operation on the outskirts of Khankendi. We didn't want the war to continue because we didn't want people to die. We wanted to do it peacefully. If we wanted to continue, we were just on the border with Armenia, everywhere, in Zangilan, in Kelbejar, in other directions. Armenia's army was totally demoralized. There have been 12,000 deserters, as Armenia's government itself confirms that. So no one could have prevented us from doing what we are now accused of. So we didn't have these intentions, and we do not have these intentions. But at the same time, we must be alert. We should not forget 30 years of occupation. We should not forget the dreams of great Armenia, which still circulate not only in diaspora in France and United States, but also in Armenian government and in all political spectrum. You will hardly find any Armenian politician who does not dream about taking Karabakh back. This is a reality. We know this reality from different sources of information, and we have to live with that. So this is probably lessons which we learned from war, from post-war situation. And how post-war situation will continue to develop mainly depends on Armenia. We did what was absolutely legitimate. We restored our territorial integrity, sovereignty, put an end to separatism, and took control of our borders. And for us, this issue is done. But that doesn't mean that we will just ignore potential threats and potential danger. We must always be ready to push back. For that reason, we continue to spend substantial funds for military buildup. This is not because we plan so-called aggression. This is because we, as a victim of aggression, want to be able to defend ourselves and to punish Armenia if once again they decide to do something harmful to us.
Daria Isachenko, Germany.
Hermetli Janab President, thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm based at the German Institute for International and Security Affairs, and my question is about Turkey and Israel. Azerbaijan has good and close relations with both countries. And given the current tensions between the two, what impact does this have on Azerbaijan, and if Azerbaijan is involved in any activities to ease the tensions between Turkey and Israel? Teşekkür.
Yes, you're right. Both countries are close friends of Azerbaijan. With Turkey, we are allies. We signed the Shusha Declaration in 2021. And formally became allies, though our alliance relationship de facto existed a long time before this formal procedure. And Israel is a friendly country to Azerbaijan, and for many years mutual friendship have been demonstrated in difficult times for both of us. Therefore, of course, for us, these tensions between two countries is very disturbing and a matter of concern. And as it is already known, though we never made it public ourselves, but already it circulates quite broadly, the first successful reconciliation between Turkey and Israel was, to a certain degree, facilitated by Azerbaijan. Because what now happens between two countries is not the first crisis. it is second in the foreseeable past. So during the first crisis, we played active role in order to try to bring countries closer. And it was not only Azerbaijan, but I would say that Azerbaijan was number one in this process. Again, it was behind the scenes. We never made it public. We never tried to praise ourselves for that. We just wanted to help our ally and brother, Turkey, and our friend Israel to rebuild their relationship. And as you probably know, there were also visible signs of this normalization, like a visit of President of Israel, Mr. Herzog, to Turkey, and meeting with President Erdogan, and also the meeting between President Erdogan and Prime Minister Netanyahu in New York. It was, I think, 2 years ago. So now we are facing so-called déjà vu. So we know the algorithm of our actions, and I can assure you that we are sparing our efforts in order to try to be helpful. Probably at this stage, to say something more than that will be not the right thing to do, because again, it's relationship between two countries, and it is up to them to what degree they want to make public any kind of process, if ever, which is happening between us. Again, during the first round of normalization, we were absolutely silent. We worked behind the scenes. So you can imagine that we are doing the same now. And we hope that the process will lead to normalization. It is always bad when your friends have bad relations. It is bad for them, it is bad for us, and bad for the world. Because I think despite legitimate concerns and despite quite a high level of mistrust, still they can be found the grounds for normalization and the areas of mutual interest. So the process, to my mind, should not stop, and Azerbaijan is doing everything in its possession to facilitate the process.
Ramiz Yunus, United States.
Dear Mr. President, it's a great honor for me to be here today, and I'm very happy to meet you again. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you very much for the invitation. It's already a great opportunity for me. It's a tradition. Came to my homeland, especially to the Karabakh region of Azerbaijan, for very important international events with your participation. Last time it was in Shusha, now in Khankendi in Baku. At the same time, I appreciate the opportunity to ask you questions regarding serious geopolitical issues in the world and around our region. Dear Mr. President, last time, before the US elections, in response to my previous questions, you shared your excellent experience of communicating with both Democrats and Republicans. And as I remember, you said it was always easier for you to work with Republican administration. Dear Mr. President, I have a question for you. If your expectation after the change of power in the White House were justified, or it is still too early to talk about that? And what do you see the main risk for Azerbaijan and for our region today? Once again, thank you very much, dear Mr. President.
Thank you. From my personal experience, and I shared it on a couple of occasions, of course, working with Republican administration was much more comfortable rather than with Democratic administration. I started my presidential duties in 2003 during the time of President George Bush, and relations between two countries were very good. We, both of us highly appreciated mutual support and considered and publicly announced the strategic importance of our bilateral relations. Azerbaijan was among the first non-NATO countries which joined operations in Afghanistan and in Iraq, and that was based on the request from the US administration. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been there. We provided not only physical support through a large number of our military servicemen, but also provided important transportation link to Afghanistan, whether it's air connection or our land facilities and through Caspian Sea. So it was highly appreciated by US governments during the administration of President Bush. Situation changed a little bit, but not dramatically after President Bush ended his duties. But during the times of Biden-Blinken administration, relations between the United States and Azerbaijan can be characterized as relations in crisis. And the reason for that was not us. We always wanted to have good relations with the United States, which is the strongest country in the world. But it was because anti-Azerbaijani policy of State Department run by Mr. Blinken and many anti-Azerbaijani people in administration of President Biden. So I can name various facts which created frustration in Azerbaijan. I think the only one is enough, how sanctions have been reimposed on Azerbaijan. So when Azerbaijan was needed to the United States, so-called 907 Amendment to the Freedom Support Act, which was discriminatory to Azerbaijan, was waived. And every president of the United States every year was issuing a waiver. But as soon as Biden-Blinken administration ran away from Afghanistan, and how they did it, all of us have seen, they reimposed this amendment again on us. So being so unthankful is, how to say, very harmful for administration itself, because who will trust them after that? And our level of trust to Biden-Blinken team was close to zero. Our relations were in deep crisis. United States under Biden-Blinken team took unilateral side with Armenia. That was for the first time officially since the Armenia-Azerbaijan conflict started. Yes, we all knew what kind of support Armenia had in all democratic administrations, but nevertheless, never in the history of American mediation to the process, they took unilateral side with Armenia. It's enough to remember April 5th last year, very strange meeting in Brussels with participation of Mr. Blinken, Madame Ursula von der Leyen, Mr. Borrell, and Mr. Pashinyan. Unprecedented meeting which this team of American and European politicians never had with any country of the world, not only of post-Soviet area. And we had enough credible information that part of the agreed protocol was devoted to military buildup. And we raised this issue in advance in order to prevent it. And then it was deducted from the text of the document, but de facto it existed. And based on that, so-called European Peace Facility Fund allocated first tranche to Armenia to buy weapons. Another important milestone in deterioration of US-Azerbaijan relations under Mr. Blinken was a strategic partnership declaration, which was signed 5 days before President Trump came to office. On 14th January this year, in Washington, Secretary Blinken and Armenian foreign minister signed declaration on strategic partnership in a rush, in a hurry, just as thieves, you know. Just 5 days, the new team has come. President Trump, he will determine the policy. What is the reason for that? That was another anti-Azerbaijani move by Mr. Blinken. I regret it very much because I trusted him a lot in the beginning of our communications. But, well, unfortunately, I was wrong. So attempts to build dividing lines in the Caucasus, to isolate Azerbaijan, to discriminate us, to spread rumors about Azerbaijan. As soon as Biden-Blinken team left the office, all these insinuations against Azerbaijan immediately stopped. The media, which was very aggressive on us, those whom President Trump calls fake news, like Washington Post, New York Times, Politico, etc., they immediately stopped publishing all ugly articles about Azerbaijan. We knew that the source of these articles is State Department. The same was with USAID. Now, by the way, our general prosecutor is investigating the illegal activity of USAID. I was already informed about a preliminary investigation, and it demonstrates the scope of anti-Azerbaijani activity and attempts to undermine our government, the clear attempts to intervene and interfere into our internal affairs. As soon as the portfolio is ready, we will submit it to President Trump's administration so they can take serious measures about this corrupt USAID and its corrupt leaders. So this is a history, and well, I can talk about that history maybe for several hours, but most important is now, yes, whether we already got what we expected. I would say yes, because first, anti-Azerbaijani trend in US policy stopped, and this is already a positive sign. Second, there have been already high-level contacts between members of Trump's administration and the Azerbaijani team on different levels with a very productive and mutually acceptable agenda. And third, taking into account the agenda of Trump's administration, we can foresee that this period in our relations will be a very good opportunity to strengthen our partnership. And also we have experience in working with Trump's administration during his first term, which was also very positive. We didn't have any crisis in our relations. Yes, our relations were not as active as we would have wanted them to be, but that was first term. Now, when President Trump and his team have seen European Union's hypocrisy against him, have seen how European leaders were behind the plot against him, supporting Madam Harris. So he felt it on his own skin. So his second term, definitely, that's my assessment, will be much more active and much more concentrated on Americans' national interests than his first. And in American national interests, this I can say with full authority, strong relations with Azerbaijan are very important for this region, because Azerbaijan as a leading country in Southern Caucasus, Azerbaijan as a part of Global South with a strong position in non-aligned movement where we've been successful chair for 4 years, with our strong connections with the region of Central Asia, what we already discussed, and with capability, with economic potential, with energy resources, with army which demonstrated its strength on the battlefield, not on the parades, and with all the rest, with political connections, can be a very important partner for United States. We want it to happen. We see that it is happening. At the same time, we understand that now President Trump and his team are preoccupied with much more urgent and important issues of global agenda. So we are waiting for the time when we will engage or maybe re-engage in a very strong, predictable, long-term strategic relationship with the new administration.
Tembisa Fakude, South Africa.
Thank you, and good morning, Mr. President. Thanks very much for having us. It's my second time in Azerbaijan. I met you last time in Shusha during the Global Media Summit, and thanks again for being invited. Azerbaijan is, at least from where we sit in Africa, we're observing the geopolitical strength and involvement of Azerbaijan with the leadership at the non-alignment movement. You are also involved this year with your leadership with COP29, so all of us are observing with interest, but importantly is Azerbaijan is also investing in social educational projects in Africa, and many Africans, of course, are happy for that. We've got more students studying in Azerbaijan who are coming from Africa, and you're also transferring skills in terms of training and professionalizing some of our public services, and that's appreciated largely. But Africans are also looking at the more additional involvement on Azerbaijan, particularly in southern part of Africa where I come from. Now the question is, and this is the answer I have to take back home, do you have any plans of expanding your socio-educational and other academic involvement in particular in Southern Africa? And if that's the case, what are those plans? Thank you.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to say that South Africa is one of the few countries on the African continent where we have already embassy for many years. We don't have many embassies in Africa, but the number of embassies is growing. I think South Africa was one of the first. So this demonstrates our huge interest to work with your country on different tracks. Yes, we've been always very supportive to our friends in Africa when they needed our support. During the times of COVID, we provided financial and humanitarian support to more than 80 countries, and majority of those countries were countries of African continent. Through different means, we support educational programs, medical programs, we provide scholarship for students from Africa. We do it through our state funds, we do it through NGOs, we do it through Azerbaijan agency which provides international assistance, which is part of our foreign ministry. So all that is happening. Yes, we would like to see more active interaction, and I think this year's visits from African leaders to Azerbaijan demonstrate this huge mutual interest. With respect to non-aligned movement, for 4 years we've been very helpful to all the member states. We left a good legacy in non-aligned movement because at certain stage this movement started to deteriorate a little bit. So we brought a new dynamism. We initiated the creation of the parliamentary platform, which was successfully created, and the youth platform. So these are two important legacies of Azerbaijan. And we worked actively on institutional development of non-aligned movement and potential transformation into organization. Our chairmanship was unanimously supported when we've been elected for 3 years, but then member states decided to extend our chairmanship for 1 more year, which is unprecedented case in the history of the movement. So again, by unanimous decision, Azerbaijan's chairmanship was extended. So this demonstrates that despite the fact that there are certain bilateral or multilateral misunderstandings between the member states, it's understandable, 120 countries. With respect to Azerbaijan, all of them were united in appreciation of our role. During COP, we publicly announced that our main target will be to support the least developed countries, to support those countries which are facing existential threat, and we did it. And with respect to results of COP, though I know that some so-called experts, which goal was to discredit Azerbaijan's presidency, were saying that financing was not achieved, but we increased the financing from $100 billion US dollars, the level which was achieved throughout all the COPs, all the 28 COPs, the level was 100 billion. And at our COP, we increased it to 300. So is it an achievement? Of course it is. We tripled the financing. We launched a special program for small island developing states, and Azerbaijan allocated 10 million US dollars in direct support to small island developing states with respect to their existential threats, because climate change for everyone is a problem, but for them it's just their life, it's their future. During COP, another important achievement was agreement on making carbon market functional. This issue was not agreed for at least 10 years. So it was agreed in Azerbaijan due to our chairmanship, due to trust in us. And also, of course, we played an important role in building bridges between global south and global north. That was one of the important assignments which we put in front of ourselves. So the way how we tackled COVID, the way how we hosted COP, and by the way, until the end of the year, we will be president. So, and bilateral contacts with African countries demonstrate clearly our agenda, and we see a very positive reaction to our efforts in many African countries. So our foreign policy with respect to building stronger ties with African countries is already fixed and approved by me. Actually, I initiated that. At this stage, we must be much more active. And also, coming back to what we already discussed with respect to occupation and relations with Armenia, during all those years of occupation, our main foreign policy priority was restoration of territorial integrity. All our efforts had ultimate goal to restore sovereignty and territorial integrity, though that's why many other important issues of our potential foreign policy agenda were overshadowed. And this is understandable, because that was national idea of Azerbaijani people and Azerbaijani state. Now, when this issue is done, we have many more time, much more time and many more opportunities to build stronger relations with countries which we consider friendly, which never did anything harmful to Azerbaijan, unlike some other countries from some other continents, and which appreciate friendship, and we are ready to work on those issues which you mentioned, and also on other issues. We already are in the phase of providing low-interest loans to some countries in Africa to tackle important issues. We already are elaborating our investment portfolio for some countries in Africa with which we have close relations. So it will not be only humanitarian, it will be also business, it will be investments, and of course, political ties.
Anton Dimovic, Croatia.
Mr. President, can you hear me? Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. It's my honor to be here. I'm from Croatia, and we had a successful visit of Minister of Economy, Mr. Japarov, to Croatia. And we are a friendly country supporting Azerbaijan because we had the occupation of our territory. And we strongly support you even now after the successful operation to not to allow impunity to be enforced, to persecute every war criminal that was committed in places like Ganja. So my question is regarding my region. Now Albania, they will invest. They're looking to invest billions into gasification because they have tap, but the country is not gasified. And Croatia is actually now using European money to extend its gas pipeline system. So do you think this is an opportunity actually to, once again, to tell to Brussels it's time to involve these gasification projects into the investment plan for the Balkans, and to have Azerbaijan as a partner country, and not just to be a platform for fossil fuels, for gas, but also to open up doors for green energy and cooperation between the region, especially Croatia, in many terms, also in projects of reconstruction of Azerbaijan, artificial intelligence, etc. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. As I already mentioned recently, 5 days ago, we had 11th Advisory Council of the Southern Gas Corridor and the 3rd Advisory Council on Green Energy, which was held in Baku, and that was our initiative, which we initiated many years ago, and it is under the auspices of Azerbaijan and European Commission. In my introductory remarks there, apart from giving information about what we've done during last year on European gas market, I raised 2 important issues which must be addressed by European financial institutions and by European Commission if they want to continue to receive large volumes of gas and to increase the gas supply from Azerbaijan. First is financial institutions policy. In all our energy projects, whether it's oil and gas, upstream, downstream, there was a kind of agreed ratio between corporate financing and borrowed money. It was usually 70% borrowed money, 30% corporate money. So now, European Union wants more gas from Azerbaijan, and for that reason, President of European Commission, Madam Ursula von der Leyen, visited Azerbaijan July 2022, when European Union was very concerned about the supplies of gas. And we signed a declaration on strategic partnership in the field of energy. And since that time, based on the request from European Commission, we increased the gas supply to Europe almost at a level of 60%, from 8 BCM in 2029 to almost 13 in 2024. And many more European countries, including Croatia, became recipients of Azerbaijani gas. Now, we have more gas for export from existing fields, where we'll have new phase of development of these fields, from the fields which are producing gas on the initial stage, and we will have several billion cubic meters of gas just because we will install green energy power plants that will save us a lot of gas, which today we use to produce electricity. So all that roughly makes our potential increase of gas supply minimum at the level of 10 BCM, minimum. I don't want to be more precise, but when I say minimum, I always try to be very conservative in my assessment, so it means that very small minimum. Transportation infrastructure, Southern Gas Corridor is fully packed. There's no room there. It must be expanded. Again, how? With borrowed money and with corporate money. But here we come to the point that European Investment Bank, EIB, stopped completely financing fossil fuel projects. It is a strategy, and we all know that the European Investment Bank is well integrated with the European Commission. EBRD, though officially did not close fossil fuel, chapter, but keeps it at a very marginal share. And in my communication with the president of EBRD this January in Davos, I raised this issue. And I raised this issue during the visit of President of Germany just several days ago, because Germany, as a leading country in Europe, has a lot of instruments in order to influence the policy. I raised this issue, as I said, publicly during my comments on Advisory Council on the 4th of April, and I raised this issue with European Energy Commissioner during our meeting. So this is number one. This embargo on fossil fuel financing must be lifted. Well, they need just to look at what President Trump is doing on fossil fuel and not to be late. Second important factor is long-term contracts. When the European Union says that in 2050 they will be carbon neutral, and then they ask me to invest money and to produce more gas, so where that gas will go? If you will not get it from us, then why should I invest? Or why should I look at your market as my main market? Yes, the market of European Union is premium from point of view of legislation, rules, procedures, interconnected largely, and with respect to price. But we can look for other markets. The demand for Azerbaijani gas in our neighborhood, we should not only look to the west, we can look to the east, to the south. So this is important for future development of Azerbaijan's gas industry and for energy security of Europe. We know the problems of European energy security. Despite the fact that now they think they are on the safe side, we know the demands of the industry, we know the demands even in green energy. Despite large investments in green energy, still European Union will be in shortage of electricity, and for that purpose we are now working on the green energy cable on the Black Sea from Azerbaijan to Romania. 4 gigawatt, by the way, and it's only the beginning. So they in European Commission should take out the glasses and look to the world from a realistic point of view and appreciate countries like Azerbaijan, not to try to, divide the Caucasus into their favorites and those whom they don't like, and to behave as good partners. We are ready for that. And with respect to Croatia, we started to supply gas to Croatia last year. Now our gas supply covers 12 countries. 10 of them are European, 8 of them are members of EU. You also mentioned about Albania's gasification. Just would like to inform you that Albania's gasification project in the city of Korça will be invested by Azerbaijan. So it's already agreed. Albanian government selected that city, and I think this year we will start investments in gasification. We have experience in that. We invested largely in gasification of Georgia, where now I think the level of gasification is something like 80% probably. It was 30 when we started with our money. We are now discussing the gasification project in Bulgaria. Yeah, Bulgaria has gasification, but limited. And Bulgaria today, if I am not mistaken, has about close to 50% of the gas consumptions coming from Azerbaijan. And we are ready to do the same in other countries. So, and by the way, with Croatia, it's not only limited our discussions on gasification or gas supply, but on other issues also related to energy. Yeah. Thank you. And thank you for this question. It allowed me once again to bring this important issue to the attention of our partners in Europe.
Ömer Ashur, Qatar, United Kingdom.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. President. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. Thank you for hosting us. Congratulations again on both the liberation of the territories and on the reconstruction that we saw yesterday. I'm Omar Ashur from the Doha Institute in Qatar, but also in the University of Exeter in the UK. My question is about Ukraine. What is the Azerbaijani position vis-à-vis the Russian war on Ukraine? Now, the situation or the war has been going on now almost 12 years, and it is affecting both the global and the regional environment, including the Caucasus, Europe, and the Middle East, and even the Indo-Pacific area. As a president of a country that has major military achievements and diplomatic achievements, how do you envision the end of this war? Thank you.
First, on our position on the war between Russia and Ukraine, we always support and will continue to support Ukraine's territorial integrity and sovereignty. And as a country which suffered from occupation and deterioration of our territorial integrity, we, of course, fully understand this situation. So everyone whom you may ask will say that we want war to stop immediately. Yes, we also want. But the main question is how, and whether this ceasefire, potential ceasefire, or how to say, temporary ceasefire will be sustainable or not. As a country which had 2 wars, active wars, and period in between, I can tell you that ceasefire never stops war, never. And it didn't stop in our case. It's just a temporary relief for countries to regroup, to mobilize, and to start again. Second, what ceasefire means. It's also important because these terms are very important for those who want to help the war to stop, to clearly understand what we are talking about. Everybody will say, I want war to stop. Yes, let's applaud. So what? What does it mean, the stop? Does it mean that there'll be no artillery, there'll be no air bombs, there'll be no sniper war, there'll be no sabotage group? What it will mean? Line of contact between Russia and Ukrainian troops is much longer than ours. Yes, it is different terrain. In our case, the line of contact was very advantageous for Armenia because they had a nature landscape which protected them and actually helped to keep occupation. Plus, during the ceasefire period for 26 years, they built sometimes 5, sometimes 6, sometimes even more lines of engineering lines. Trenches, barbed wire, minefields. So we have, every week, we have casualties on mines, almost 400 people, more than 70 of them killed, and others became severely wounded. So when people talk about ceasefire in Ukraine or peace in Ukraine, do they understand how difficult it will be to control the troops? And what is the level of discipline in Ukrainian army and Russian army? I don't know. Maybe I know, but I don't want to comment. The level of discipline of Azerbaijani army is well known. We stopped on the outskirts of Hankendi by one order of commander-in-chief. So will that line of contact be safe and secure? Will those who want to mediate demand international peacekeepers on that line of contact as they demanded it from us? Throughout the years of occupation, one of the consolidated messages of United States, Russia, and France was to bring so-called peacekeepers on the line of contact. So what it meant? It meant that they wanted us to agree for occupation. If peacekeeper comes to the line of contact, which is occupied, that means that you should say goodbye to your territory. And no country, at least in my understanding, will agree to compromise on territorial integrity. And to expect Ukraine to agree that they will sacrifice the international recognized territory in exchange of peace, I think is not fair and is not realistic. Because one thing is to say good things, let's stop the war. And the second thing is to go a little bit deeper and maybe to ask those who had the war recently and what kind of arrangements it needs to create a sustainable peace. Since 1994 May, when we had a ceasefire with Armenia, the war never stopped. There have been different clashes. There was April 2016, when we demonstrated Armenians that they should leave the territories. We didn't want to enter in the large-scale military operation. That's why it lasted only 3 days. But we demonstrated them that we can liberate territories, and we liberated territories. Small, but they did not take that lesson. And then there were several more. The sniper war never stopped throughout 26 years. And even now, you can see that a lot of shootings on our border coming from Armenia. And if ours shoot, they shoot only in response. Discipline in Armenian army is very low. They recruited people who never served or maybe served 30 years ago in army, civilians, these so-called paramilitary groups, veteran groups, and people who do not serve in the regular army because of lack of human resources in Armenia. So all these questions, of course, it's a big topic, so we can talk hours about that. But without addressing this core issue, it will not work. Me personally, being a realist, I do not see in the foreseeable future any prospect for peace between Ukraine and Russia. Russia declared occupied territories as part of Russia. How they can step back from that? Ukraine considers, as the whole world, these occupied territories as part of Ukraine. And Azerbaijan considers them as part of Ukraine. How can they sacrifice and say, no, it's not part of Ukraine? Well, if it happens, then it means that I do not understand something in international politics. And unfortunately, wars end when there is a final capitulation act. As our friend mentioned, from Croatia, they liberated their territory, came to their border, and stopped. And we did the same. We came to our border and stopped. That's how the wars end. This is real world.
Ambassador Kılıç, Turkey.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hacıyev. Your Excellency, Mr. President, it is a great honor to be at this conference under your distinguished presence. I am grateful to His Excellency, Ambassador Pashayev, along with his esteemed team, for inviting me to this very significant conference. Other university is a unique institution in the region that organizes important international conference on the current topic. Mr. President, I am proud to say that with the historical victory of the 44-day war and the 23 hours anti-terror operation, you have written a history for the future generations. They will always remember your legacy. You have restored not only territorial integrity of Azerbaijan, but also international justice. Before asking my questions, I would like to draw the kind attention of the distinguished participant to your two most recent major historical successes. First, your remarkable achievement as a chairman of the No-Alignment Movement for 4 years. You truly revitalized this movement. During your chairmanship, the first 2 years coincided with the global pandemic. We will never forget Azerbaijan's vaccination donation to many African countries and the emphasis you place on women and youth during your tenure, as you said. Second, your success in hosting COP29. In just 8 months of preparation, you achieved a miracle. The organization of COP29 was outstanding. Despite boycott call from some European leaders, such President Macron, nearly 80,000 guests and 70 heads of state and government attended. I was very proud to witness this historical success. I would like to extend my warmest congratulations. Your Excellency, we know very well that you attach very great importance to the Turkish Organization of Turkic states. And this year, Azerbaijan will host the upcoming summit. Next month, informal summit will be held in Budapest. Your Excellency, could you tell us about your assessment on the organization of Turkish states? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for your kind words about our country. You're a great friend of Azerbaijan during your activity here as ambassador, and after you always demonstrate a brotherly approach to our country, our people. I follow your activity, and I'm very glad that you are with us. Azerbaijan is a country which always played a very active role in cooperation between countries of the Turkic world. We initiated the first informal summit last summer in Shusha, because I told my colleagues that it is not enough to meet once a year. Let's have 2 sessions a year. So this initiative was supported, and tradition already exists. So probably next month, the dates are not yet fixed, but most probably next month we will have a second informal summit and then a formal summit in Azerbaijan. Relations between the countries of Turkish world are extremely important for us. For us, it's one of the main priorities in our foreign policy. We are united by history, by ethnic roots, by language similarities, and by culture, by traditions. And we want to see organization more consolidated and more result-oriented. For that purpose, Azerbaijan is doing its utmost. From point of view of interaction between member states, I think we have a very good atmosphere. I follow closely also bilateral track between member states and see that we don't have any points of disagreement on bilateral track and also on multilateral. But at the same time, I think that the efforts all of us are demonstrating are not enough in today's rapidly changing world, as the topic of your forum is. Really, we should not be too late and should not miss this opportunity in converting our organization into an important global actor. There is a great potential for that. Huge geography, human resources, natural resources, transportation routes, and this organization is based on ethnic roots. We know many organizations, don't want to compare with any, but uniqueness of organization of Turkic states is that it is based on ethnicity, on common roots, on tradition, on common values, and we share these values. Again, it's difficult not to compare, but excuse me, I will. If you look at European Union, we have countries which pursue absolutely different values, and the countries which are absolutely, the peoples of these countries absolutely different from one each other. If we take South and North, if we take political developments in some countries absolutely different from others, we see a lot of disagreements now in the European Union with respect to values, culture, traditions, migrants, tariffs, etc., etc. Do we have something in Turkish organization of Turkey? No, we don't have. So this makes us unique. So what is not enough. It's our consolidated international activity. This is not enough. And we want to be more vocal, to be more active, and to have our say in global affairs. Because taking into account, again, geography, population, if we add here the military capability, it's well known that the Turkish army is the strongest in Europe. Azerbaijan's military capability also was demonstrated. So if we add that, we can really become a center of international activity on global scale, especially when we see some organizations' internal disputes, mistrust, and lack of mutual trust. I mentioned the European Union, I can also mention NATO. We all know what some countries of NATO now think about Article 5. Well, whether it will be taken into account or not, there is a certain mistrust in NATO, which is considered to be one of the strongest international organizations on a global scale. So we need to be more active. We need to, maybe it's the wrong word to fill the gap, but we need to become the center of decision-making process on a huge area of Eurasia, at least.
Georgia. President Aliyev, thank you for your time to meet us, and thank you always for the very candid and open-minded manner of addressing our questions, which I personally very much acknowledge and respectful for. There is a certain overlap between different questions, which is quite understandable. We've touched on the region, the South Caucasus, which is our geopolitical and geoeconomical habitat. Still, if we could refocus on that region, since the concept of region is gaining a traction, a new momentum. In this time of volatility in terms of redesigning global supply chains, etc., how the region could portray its geopolitical and geoeconomical ego and make itself more competitive, to expand a little bit more on that. And also, as someone who represents Georgia, is from Georgia, to address that question in the context of our bilateral ties. Something which we very much enjoy as the legacy of two famous leaders being laid down in the beginning of the 90s, and therefore quite natural, organic, and understandable is my question to you as to the visionary leader of the region. How do you see the prospects of those bilateral relations, as I'm pretty much sure that we're the gates to each other's future successes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Definitely relations with Georgia for us are of strategic importance, and due to the historical connections between our peoples, our mutual past as being non-free and non-independent, and also period of independence where from the very beginning Georgia-Azerbaijan demonstrated very high level of mutual understanding, partnership, friendship, and actually managed to transform the region of Southern Caucasus into strategically important. It was done by us only, by Georgia and Azerbaijan. Situated between two seas, Caspian and Black Sea, we are the gateway for each other to contact different regions and continents. So the prospects, I'm sure, will be as bright as our present. Just among the last developments which indicate the close partnership and friendship relations between two countries, I would name the visit of Prime Minister of Georgia, the first after elections. Usually the first visit after elections has a very symbolic sense. So the first visit was a visit to Azerbaijan. And also we expect soon the first after elections visit of the President of Georgia also to Azerbaijan. So these two facts, a clear indicator of our relationship, our commitment to each other and our friendship. Of course, we can talk a lot about the projects which unite us. They're well known, therefore I don't want to take much of your time, but they're important not only for us, for our peoples and countries, but also for a large geography. Especially now when we're adding to that green agenda, which we just discussed briefly. Again, it's a green corridor for Azerbaijan and Georgia, transportation corridor, middle corridor. It cannot be avoided. Frankly speaking, I was surprised when I was informed about the comments of President of European Commission, Madam Ursula von der Leyen, which she made in Uzbekistan at the summit of Central Asian leaders with the leaders of European Commission, when she was talking about opening the border between Azerbaijan and Armenia and Turkey in order to facilitate the middle corridor, as they call it in Europe, Global Gateway. That was very strange because this corridor exists and Armenia plays no role in that. We can understand the feelings of European bureaucrats towards Armenia, but you cannot ignore the map. And we in Georgia and in Azerbaijan, we provided all those facilities which today help Europeans to communicate with Central Asia. Georgian seaports, Baku-Tbilisi-Kars railroad, Azerbaijani seaport in Alat, Caspian shipping, which is instrumental in transportation. All that is ignored. How much money we invested, all that is ignored. Only open the border between Turkey and Armenia, open the border between Armenia and Azerbaijan. What Europe has to do with that? It's none of their business. Relations between Turkey and Armenia and Azerbaijan and Armenia, the longer distance between European Union and these issues is the better for everyone. But there was not a single word about Georgia, as if Georgia do not exist. This is unfair. And the attitude to Georgia's internal process in European Commission is absolutely unacceptable. This is a behavior of colonialists. They try to look at the will of Georgian people from the prism of their colonial past. This is absolutely unacceptable. And people of Georgia know that we are with them, and the government of Georgia knows, and internal issues of Georgia must be resolved by Georgian people, not by bureaucrats from Brussels. So with respect to all that, we need to strengthen our partnership between Georgia and Azerbaijan. And as already we discussed during the previous questions, to look at opportunities of Southern Caucasus to establish ties without any facilitator. We are fed up with these facilitators. We had those facilitators for 28 years, this notorious OSCE Minsk group, which only goal was to seal the occupation and to transfer Karabakh to Armenia. And now when we hear about someone who wants to facilitate, we are a little bit concerned. So let us ourselves, we live here in the region, we as Azerbaijan want to have in our region. So this is how we want to see Southern Caucasus as leading countries of the Southern Caucasus. Azerbaijan and Georgia, of course, should take the main burden for cooperation. But of course, Armenia, when and if agrees to, amend its constitution with respect to territorial claims against Azerbaijan, can join the process, and we can think about future long-term predictable situation in our region.
Rick Fawn, United Kingdom.
Mr. President, thank you again for this tremendous opportunity. Rick Fawn from the United Kingdom. If I may just also take this opportunity to say that the embassy in London does fantastic outreach, and it's a tremendous privilege and pleasure to work with them. Mr. President, could you update us on the prospects of relations with Iran, especially in view of some high-level meetings and the prospects with a new Iranian president, one who includes Azerbaijani heritage? Thank you very much.
We are waiting for President Pezeshkian to pay a visit to Azerbaijan this month. We consider this visit as very important with respect to the future development of bilateral relations and regional development. There have been several visits of high-ranking officials from both countries in recent months. We've been very encouraged by the election process in Iran, which led to the victory of the president, and with the messages which we receive from Iran. So we want to have good relations with all our neighbors, including Iran, and there is quite a substantial part of economic and transportation agenda, because we talked about middle corridor, but at the same time Azerbaijan is part of another important corridor, north-south. And again, it's only enough to look at the map to see that it will be very difficult to avoid Azerbaijan while building these connectivity lines. And on Azerbaijani territory, all the works with respect to highway and railroad infrastructure is done. We only, with respect to the expected large volumes of cargo, are now modernizing our railroad. It exists, but we need to expand its capacity to be able to receive all cargoes from south to north and backwards. Many issues related to energy infrastructure, electric energy lines. We export electricity to Iran and also work on issues related to multilateral cooperation in the region. Yes, we cannot forget tragic events which unfortunately happened, like a terror attack on our embassy, but that was before President Pezeshkian came to power. And we are absolutely sure that that was an organized act of terror against Azerbaijan, and all the narratives that it had some personal grounds, absolutely groundless. For 40 minutes, the terrorist was trying to, and actually managed to penetrate the building, and then when he was pushed back by unarmed security officer, he already managed to kill one and to severely wound two others. And for 40 minutes, there was no police around in the city center. Can you imagine that? It's not possible to imagine. And the terrorists had Kalashnikov, had hammer, had Molotov cocktail, and all that is filmed by our cameras inside and outside. And the police officer, which was supposed to defend the embassy run away. And okay, probably he was afraid. But why didn't he inform the police department, which is next door, that there is a terror attack on the embassy? And I asked our Iranian visitors, if you were me, what would you think about that? That was very unfortunate, and you know that we pulled back completely our embassy staff. Then I received a promise from the late foreign minister of Iran. It was already a long time ago, more than 1 year ago, that the perpetrator will be brought to justice and he will have the highest possible punishment. But it didn't happen until now. It's more than 2 years have passed. And immediately after the terror act was committed, the terrorists appeared on the media giving interviews. Have you ever seen these kind of things? That the person who kills person in the embassy of other state gives interview immediately. And the same day he was announced crazy. But, you know, we all know the procedure of medical expertise. It takes time, because sometimes the criminals, the perpetrators of different criminal activities, they pretend to be crazy. To define whether it's crazy or not, mentally ill or not, you need time. You need medical commission. And it was officially announced that he is just mentally ill. And now it's more than 2 years, and the sentence is not executed. Though we know in cases less aggressive, the execution of sentence in Iran takes maybe a couple of months. But in our case, it's more than 2 years. So can we forget it? No. No. It overshadows relations. And our hope is that the new government will fulfill the promise of the previous government. And not only the person who committed this terror act, but those who were behind him and those who sent him to attack Azerbaijani embassy will be punished. So, saying all that at the same time, with the new administration, we have working relations. We expect from them addressing this issue. We understand the complexity of political system. We understand the limitations of executive power. We know all that. But nevertheless, in order to normalize completely relations between two countries, this terror act and those who perpetrated and those who were behind the terrorists must be brought to justice and punished.
Talat Shabir, Pakistan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Dr. Talat Shabir, representing Institute of Strategic Studies, Islamabad, Pakistan. And thank you very much for the opportunity I was given to be here for the first time. Azerbaijan, it was wonderful to be in Karabakh too yesterday. My question is on China's role in Global South. We know China's initiatives like Belt and Road Initiative are fostering mutual development. Despite challenges of long-term sustainability in developing world, China's diplomatic, economic, and political influence is growing in Africa, Latin America, and Asia. China also offers an alternative model to Western-led institutions, such as IMF and World Bank. How does China's engagement with the Global South as a national leader, as it is now in scholarship is referred to, reshape traditional Western-dominated global order? Thank you.
Well, with respect to financial side of your question, I'd like to say that Azerbaijan for many years almost completely reduced dependence on international financial institutions. We stopped cooperation with IMF soon after I was elected president first time. And with other financial institutions, we either completely emptied the portfolio or very close to that. Our direct foreign debt is something more than $5 billion US only. So it's about less than 7% of our GDP, which is an indicator that we are not in need of financing. On the contrary, we've been approached by financial institutions with the offer to borrow the funds, and we are now working because we do not want to completely empty the portfolio. Among our main partners with respect to financial institutions, also we have an Asian Bank for Infrastructure and Investment, which was created at the initiative of China. So from this point of view, difficult to comment because actually this is not on my agenda because it is done. On political and transportation track, yes, we see a lot of positive developments. Among them, I would name the declaration on strategic partnership between China and Azerbaijan, which was adopted last year as a result of my meeting with President Xi Jinping, which is a very important milestone in our bilateral relations, because to have a strategic partnership format of cooperation with such a great country as China, of course, is of extreme importance for us. We actively work now with Chinese companies. We invited them to be our strategic partners in different areas, including in the area of green energy. Would name that the companies have been selected as our partners in manufacturing of the green public transportation vehicles. The first production is expected this year. And they also are suppliers of solar panels, which are being installed in Azerbaijan with the investments of investors from other countries. And also, we are in the phase of negotiations with some Chinese companies with respect to investment, direct investment in green energy. We are starting dialogue on defense industry cooperation, and we think that that could be a very promising process because, as we already discussed, Azerbaijan is continuing to modernize its armed forces, and of course for us it will be also interesting to diversify the geography of supplies and also engage in joint manufacturing. And definitely the middle corridor, One Belt, One Road, initiative of President Xi Jinping, which, as I said, in Europe they want to call it global gateway. Frankly speaking, I don't know what it means. But One Belt, One Road is a project which we supported from the very beginning, and not only supported publicly, but we invested. We built the biggest on the Caspian shore seaport. We are now manufacturing 6 vessels on our shipyard. Our shipyard is now fully packed with, orders. We upgraded our railroad and even invested additional funds on the increasing capacity of Baku-Tbilisi-Kars Railroad on Georgian territory. So now its capacity is 5 million tons. We think that part of the cargoes from China will go also through Zangezur. through Zengilan Road. And by the way, coming to the previous question, one of the issues which we are discussing with the Iranian side is to build a bypass, bypassing Armenia, and to connect Nakhchivan with mainland Azerbaijan through Iranian territory. The highway bypass is being done. We are building the bridge. And the railroad bypass is something which Iran and Azerbaijan must agree, because Armenia blocking us from access to Nakhchivan, we cannot sit and wait, so we agreed that we will build a bypass and Armenia will continue to be a deadlock in the region. So transportation definitely, and middle corridor will be one of the most important factor of our bilateral agenda from practical point of view. And of course, Azerbaijan also is an active country of Global South, and China plays a very important role in Global South. So here, and also is member of non-aligned movement, where we chaired for 4 years. So it is a very diversified relationship, very strong, and with a great potential for the future.
Mr. President, we are almost 2 hours, and considering your busy schedule, and we have also quite substantial number of the questions. With your permission, at this stage, we still have around 8 or 9 questions, but with your permission, I can somehow combine the questions together.
If audience is not tired, we can continue.
Then our next question to Jordi Hukla, Spain.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President, for this opportunity. One short comment and one question. Now I act as a professor of international relations, but in one of my previous capacity as a member of the Spanish Parliament and as a member of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, I spent years trying to fix a solution for Karabakh according with international law. One conclusion on this is the absolutely fail of international organizations to achieve, to help in the solutions on it. So congratulations for the bilateral compromises without international organizations noisings. And the question, Mr. President, a new world order is starting, but some political patterns remains has good tools for international relations. One of these is the strategic thinking in this mentality of the non-aligned organizations that you share from 2014 to 2025, which is the role of Azerbaijan as a middle power in a new world order in the light of the experience of the non-aligned chairmanship. Thank you very much.
Yes, we treated our chairmanship with great responsibility. We were a relatively new member of non-aligned movement. When we've been selected as a chair country, it was less than 10 years only of our membership. So that means that our strategic decision to join this institution was absolutely timely and was absolutely correct. And during these years, as I said, we worked a lot in order to try to transform this into organization. We understand that it's a long process, but certain institutional platforms have been created. We already talked about that. And also for us, it was an opportunity to demonstrate ourselves. And on one hand, unfortunately, COVID happened, but on the other hand, it gave us also opportunity to demonstrate that we not only talk, but we act. And we acted in a very responsible way, helping countries who suffered a lot. We provided $10 million direct assistance and $10 million through World Health Organization. And by the way, the database for COVID, which was elaborated by us during that time, was taken as a platform for World Health Organization. So it was a very diversified support and solidarity process. Another legacy of Azerbaijan's chairmanship is that we initiated, and it was supported, to create Troika, so that to keep the synergy. So though we are no longer in the position of chair, but we are in Troika, so we have certain, how to say, certain instruments in moving organization forward, and we'll continue to work on that. You mentioned about Council of Europe and actually an ability of international organizations to facilitate resolution of the conflict with Armenia. Yes, I remember the time when we joined this institution. At that time I was member of parliament, and we had great expectations that joining Council of Europe will help us to bring this issue to international agenda, to have support of European structure, because it was obvious that who was a victim and who was the aggressor. But unfortunately, it didn't happen. And after we joined the Council of Europe in 2001, and by the way, I was the first head of Azerbaijan's delegation there, we started to see that, unfortunately, our just position is not supported. We've seen a lot of pro-Armenian lobbyists there, and I remember even those whom we called among ourselves haters of Azerbaijan, and still there are a lot of them even now. So our expectations did not come true. We could not even seriously engage Parliamentary Assembly into addressing this issue. The maximum what we achieved, it was, I think, if I'm not mistaken, in 2005, was a resolution which was reflecting the conflict and occupation. Because of two facts. First, Parliamentary Assembly was mainly anti-Azerbaijani, and second, OSCE Minsk Group, they blocked every organization from addressing this issue. And I know that the co-chairs of OSCE Minsk Group even visited Strasbourg in order to deliver consolidated message from United States, France, and Russia to Council of Europe: stay away from this process. It is our monopoly, don't interfere. So this is how it was. So our expectations with respect to using this platform to address this issue did not come true. And moreover, Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe decided to punish Azerbaijan for restoration of our sovereignty. September 2023, the separatists was totally eradicated in Karabakh. January 2024, they decided to deprive our delegation from the voting right, just because of that. Yes, they want to pack it into a kind of a human rights issue, but it's not true. We are, as I said, since 2001 in this institution, and never Azerbaijan delegation's credibility or credentials were doubted. So it was exactly because we restored our sovereignty and territorial integrity. Several months after, they decided to deprive us from the voting right, and we decided that in these circumstances we will just come home. And since that time we are not participating in their sessions. And by the way, taking into account that we did not participate in the election of the judges, of European Court of Human Rights, all the decisions of European Court, for us is invalid. And this is a position which we elaborated, and I just take this opportunity to announce it, that none of the decisions of European Court is valid for us because we've been deprived from voting right. We did not vote for these judges. We don't know who these judges are. So I think the Council of Europe shoot in their own foot. They wanted to discriminate Azerbaijan, to isolate us, but actually they isolated themselves from the Caucasus. And look, recently Georgians did the same, and I fully support the decision of Georgian government to put an end to the presence there, because again it was a discrimination. Unfortunately, this colonial thinking in some European politicians, especially those who could not or did not manage to be elected in European Parliament and found their place in the Council of Europe Parliamentary Assembly, unfortunately this is counterproductive. And I said at that time, did anyone in Azerbaijan notice that we are no longer there? No. We can live like that. And by the way, the Secretary General of the Council of Europe, he came to Baku last November to attend COP29 and asked me that we do not pull back completely from the organization. I said, okay, if you ask, we will stay. But whether we stay or we leave, nothing changes here. The world has changed since we joined this institution, and Europe has changed dramatically. And our aspirations with respect to European Union changed dramatically. And the topic of your discussion is changed. So after President Trump came to power, this change became complete. And to behave as if nothing happened and to continue to think that some resolution in Strasbourg, or in Council of Europe or European Parliament make any difference for us, it's very naive. It's absolutely inadequate to our attitude to these institutions. We, as Azerbaijan, feel ourselves very comfortably in our region. We already discussed this issue, whether it's Southern Caucasus, whether it's a bigger region of Central Asia or Middle East, very comfortably, self-sufficient economy, stable political system, full consolidation of society around the national idea, and of course, the victory in the Second Karabakh War consolidated the society even more. And bureaucrats in Brussels and in Strasbourg, they just live in their own planet. They think that everybody is around them is trying to come closer. No, that time has passed, at least for Azerbaijan, many years ago. Partnership, yes. Friendship, also yes, if you do not interfere into my affairs and if you don't want to impose your so-called values on our society, yes, but nothing more. So, once again, thank you very much for raising this issue. It gave me an opportunity to a little bit reveal how we treat the situation and how we try to find our place in the changing world.
Anatoly Boyashov, Belarus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. President, my honor and pleasure to be here. I represent the Belarusian Institute of Strategic Research created by President Lukashenko in 2019. And our main function is to provide our president with analytical information. It was a demanding task to choose only one question, given the enhancement of our bilateral cooperation. But nevertheless, we observe that the technologies of electoral interference have become more sophisticated recently. And still, despite these, Azerbaijan held presidential elections with highest degree of stability and political resilience. And my question is, what is the formula of Azerbaijani electoral sovereignty? And if I may, do you observe the change in technologies of electoral interference? Thanks.
Well, interference into our elections in previous years was not through the technological, or to say, process, but through different very simple instruments. First, the money, which was channeled by so-called Western NGOs to Azerbaijan. Second, anti-Azerbaijani propaganda in the Western media, those whom President Trump calls fake news, like Washington Post, New York Times, and of course, French pro-governmental media, also fake news like Figaro, Le Monde. So creation a kind of atmosphere that Azerbaijan is a dictatorship, Azerbaijan has no democratic experience, human rights are brutally violated, opposition is angels, and the government is devil. So it was very simple. At the time when we were a little bit naive and could not even imagine that those who smile into our face want to stab us in our back, we actually did not fully control the financial flows of these funds. And that was the reason why such a notorious institutions like National Democratic Institute, NDI, actually was plotting a coup d'etat here. It was detected, so we chased more than $1 million US from the bank account, which was cashed out, and then we found part of that money in the rented apartments of pro-opposition activists, together with Molotov cocktail and the instruction how to attack governmental buildings, how to attack policemen. So all that we experienced. The attempts of Orange Revolution here in 2005, inspired by US State Department, also we all remember, we never forget. And so it was very simple. Now it's more difficult to do, because first, we have full control over financial system. Second, all so-called grants which have been provided to so-called local NGOs, actually the branches of opposition, are now have to be registered. And it is very difficult to smuggle money here, but unfortunately, some Western institutions are very creative, so they find new ways how to smuggle money here through different couriers. They get this money mainly in Georgia. Saying in Georgia, I don't want to sound like it is from Georgia. No, it is from these Western non-governmental organizations which still are operational in Georgia, through Georgian banks which are controlled by foreigners, the credit cards without names, and cash money which is being brought here in order to destabilize situation. But When we trace that, when our law enforcement institutions bring those money smugglers to justice, they start to accuse us that we are doing some undemocratic things. So this is how it was in Azerbaijan. I hope it will end, because it is absolutely useless, has no sense, and everybody knows who is who, but nevertheless we are not guaranteed that one day they again will decide to bring a puppet and to put it in the presidential chair and then to rule Azerbaijan as they wanted. What President Trump started to do is very promising, but I think that he should not stop. USAID, of course, is a monster number one, is a completely corrupt structure. I already talked a little bit on that. Radio Liberty and Voice of America, very good that they already stopped, but it's not enough. He should go deeper. Human Rights Watch, Freedom House, Amnesty International, Transparency, all this infrastructure of his political enemies must be totally made dysfunctional. And again, we as a country, which faced all that smear campaigns, coordinated attack on Azerbaijan, we know very well how it works, how it functions. We know people in the embassies who are involved in illegal activity, and we are ready to provide United States Prosecutor's Office, a law enforcement agency, with all information about illegal, destructive activity of Mr. Trump's predecessors. So I think I answered your question about that, so thank you for being with us.
Egypt.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and dear my President. Thank you to give me a chance to be here second time. I have a comment and a question. First comment, what I see yesterday in Karabakh. In Karabakh, I visited Karabakh three times. Yesterday, I see this is the third success story of Azerbaijan since its independence in 1918 and followed in 1991. Today, the reconstruction of the Karabakh after its liberation, I think it's very, very important for us to know how Azerbaijan reconstruction the Karabakh after liberation. I see it is represented unique success. So I congratulate you in that. Second, as for my question is, Azerbaijan plays important role in Islamic world. So we wanted to spotlight the trends of policy of Azerbaijan towards the crisis in the Middle East, especially what is happening in Gaza, in Syria, and Lebanon. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments about our country, and I'm very grateful that you already visited Karabakh several times. Thank you for that. With respect to the situation in Gaza, Azerbaijan was from the very first days of the crisis actively advocating for ceasefire, stop military operations, and our position remained unchanged. With respect to situation in every country, it's a matter of the countries to decide themselves what is a priority for them. Therefore, we try usually not to comment domestic situation in any country. Even in Armenia, during the times of occupation, we never commented on their domestic agenda. But at the same time, with respect to Syria, I can say that we are glad that there's been a change in government. Syria, during the previous leadership, unfortunately took a very pro-Armenian and anti-Azerbaijani position. There have been a lot of political contacts between Armenian leadership and Syrian leadership previous. There have been letters of congratulations, mutual visits. Now today's Armenian government thinks that nobody remembers that, but we all remember that. How close they've been to government of President Assad. How they communicated, how they cooperated. And now when we see that they're trying to send humanitarian assistance to Syria, it once again demonstrates Armenian hypocrisy. And I hope that the new Syrian government will not allow these hypocrites and enemies of the new government to try to find the ground in Syria. So we support the new government of Syria. We exchanged official, letters, and we congratulated that. And of course, we are very glad that now, finally, on this southern border of our brotherly country, Turkey, there will be peace. There will be no threat to Turkey from Syria. This, for us, is a very important development. It's also part of the global changes. And apart from that, we are glad for ourselves, for Syrian people, and for Turkey. In generally, with respect to our role in the Islamic world, it is highly appreciated by Muslim communities. Azerbaijan many times was selected as a host country for different events, and we also will host the summit of Islamic Cooperation Organization. Organization for Culture, Education and Science of Islamic World, ISESCO, have elected Shusha as a capital of Islamic culture. And last May in Shusha, the Secretary General of ISESCO and myself, we inaugurated that. So our role with respect to solidarity between Muslim nations is highly appreciated by religious leaders of the Muslim world and political leaders, including Islamic Cooperation Organization, including Arab League, and our support to our brothers is highly appreciated by that. And the last point on that, I think that countries of the Muslim world, while assessing or elaborating their policy towards situation in any country of the Arab world, first should have some guidance from the Arab League. I think that will be the best way how to address these issues, how to express their attitude to that, because they know better. Arab League unites all Arab countries, and the policy of Arab League on every issue related to situation in Arab countries should be, and at least for us, it's a guidance, and I think for everyone should be like that.
Mr. President, we have our last two questions. With your permission, Urs Ankauf, Germany.
Your Excellency, dear Mr. President Aliyev, it's an honor having you with us today. Thank you very much for that. I would like to draw the attention on the bilateral relations with Germany. You just mentioned that our President, Frank-Walter Steinmeier, was recently on an official visit to Azerbaijan. And there was this miscommunication of the German President's administration prior to the visit when they put the flag of the dissolved illegal occupational regime. Fortunately, they re-put it from the German President's website, and there was a note of apology sent to you. So my question would be, I've read the official statement, but what are the expectations of Azerbaijan with regard to Germany concerning political and economic cooperation as we're currently undergoing the final stages of forming the new government? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. First, on that situation with the flag, of course, we all were very surprised to see that. And frankly speaking, I'm trying to be maximum frank, as always. It was very difficult for us to think that that was a mistake, because Germany is a country with long traditions of statehood, and all the attributes are being carefully taken care of. It was not only the flag, which was a flag of separatists, already dead separatist entity. It was also a comment where we've seen the Nagorno-Karabakh. Well, Nagorno-Karabakh do not exist. It exists, as we say, only in the dreams of Armenian revanchists and those who support them. So putting that wording in that statement, we considered as an insult to Azerbaijan. Another factor which did not allow us to think that it was a mistake, that if you remember the picture of the flag was torn. If they thought it's a flag of Armenia, why did they put a torn flag? So torn flag probably in the minds of those who put that picture meant that maybe wounded so-called Artsakh. So that was a message to Azerbaijan. And we took it very seriously, and frankly speaking, there have been several options for us to act. If there wouldn't have been an apology, then probably the time of the visit could have been changed. So this is just, I tell you, our internal kitchen. German ambassador was invited to Foreign Ministry to clarify the situation. And he said, if I'm not mistaken, that they will not apologize. Hikmet? Yeah. So it was another surprise. Then my assistant, Hikmet Hacıyev, contacted head of administration of President Steinmeier. And what was the answer, Hikmet? Put microphone.
Mr. President, as an initial stage...
speak in the microphone.
Yes. As an initial stage, Madam Chief of the Staff said that it's an inadvertently technical mistake, and please accept our apology and we will delete it. But it was just verbal apology between us. But I received additional instruction from your side, but Azerbaijan is insistent and we are expecting public and formal apology from our German counterparts. And afterward it has been delivered in a written form.
Yes. Thank you. So that's how it was resolved. But of course, they shouldn't have done it. Absolutely useless and meaningless attempt to hurt us. I'm sure that President Steinmeier didn't know anything about that, and that's what he told me, and I fully believe him, first because I respect him a lot, and second, frankly speaking, I also do not follow what they put on my, how to say, pictures. If something wrong is put, that you know whom to blame for that. But if something wrong was put, definitely we would have apologized without even requesting that. The visit itself was very successful, and President Steinmeier and I, we know each other many years since he was a foreign minister. He was visiting us several times, and last year we met in Berlin. So always a pleasure to talk to him. He's a very skillful politician and a great statesman. So German people can be proud of him. And with respect to the substance and the form of visit, what was seen on the media, everybody can see that it was a very friendly, very cordial interaction with a cultural program, with a lot of time for us to discuss different issues. And of course, the substance of our cooperation on the business track is very broad. And we consider this visit, by the way, the first visit of President of Germany to Azerbaijan, as an important milestone in our relationship. So all the messages which were given from Baku by both presidents were extremely positive and timely. So I think that that's also a good message to business communities of our countries to engage more actively in bilateral track. And also our expectations from Germany, especially from the new government, with respect to European Union, is to continue to pursue independent policy, because you know there is one country in the European Union which does a lot of bad things to Azerbaijan, which pretend to be a leader without any grounds. So the leading economy is Germany, the leading political force in Europe is Germany. So I hope that European Union will not fall under influence of pro-Armenian groups there.
Our final question goes to Hüseyin Işıksal, Northern Cyprus.
Sayın Janab Cumhurbaşkanı, it's so nice to see you here after, October 2023, where I accompany my president, and you accepted us as an official trip. I am special advisor of the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus president. So first of all, let me convey the warmest greetings of my president to you personally. It's always nice to be here because we are brothers, and I really feel like a home, I mean, I don't feel like I came to the foreign country. I am going to ask, the question about the organization of Turkic state, our red apple dream and vision, but their ambassador, Hulusi Bey, already asked it, so I don't want to, steal your time. I just want to, hear about your valuable comments and recommendations, how we can improve relations between my country and Azerbaijan in a, more deeper sense. Thank you very much.
Yes, you know that President Ersin Tatar visited Azerbaijan for that, and President Tatar was invited by me to attend the summit of organization, informal summit in Shusha, and he was with us with the flag of Northern Cyprus. So to our brothers in Northern Cyprus who deserve to have their own state. They deserve it by history and by their actions. We all remember the referendum which was initiated by then Secretary General of the United Nations. Many politicians want to talk about that. They prefer not to, in order not to have a headache, because one can imagine that they can create a lot of headache. And headache is not the most, harmful what they can do. But with respect to Azerbaijan, I think among our brothers in Northern Cyprus, there is no doubt that we will be with you until the end, until the independent country is established. And of course, recognized by international community.
Researchers would like to extend our appreciation and thanks to you. And we almost had a 3 hours long discussion. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you.